Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very inspiring show coming right up with special guest, Laurada Byers, and she's here to share with us her new book, Wild Wisdom, A Warthog's Tale. Now, Laurada won a game show, then traveled the world alone at the age of 20. In 1999, while stopping for ice cream at a convenience store, her husband, a noted newspaper columnist, was murdered right in front of her. She suffered intense PTSD, but pushed through it to create, with her children, the Russell Byers Charter School, which she opened in 2001. Diagnosed with Parkinson's in 2013, she nevertheless went off to see the silverback gorillas in Rwanda. Laurada is the founder of Warthog Productions, named after her favorite animal, who unabashedly bears life's ugliness for all to see, but twirls with joy nonetheless. So let's welcome to the show, Laurada Byers.
Well, thank you so much, Marianne. I'm delighted to be here.
What an honor it is to have you here and to talk about your new book. You know, I've got to ask you, what inspired you to write this book?
Well, a couple of things. Number one, the last 20 years, there have been so many people in my life, both as colleagues and as family members, who have helped me get through the death of my husband and the starting of a charter school in his memory, that I wanted to say thank you to those people. And I also wanted to say thank you to all the students and the parents and teachers who have worked at the school and who've made it such a success.
Well, and what a beautiful, a beautiful thing to bring forward and share with people. I know, it talks about in your bio about how you went through a really difficult time. I mean, your husband was murdered in front of you, for our listeners that are new to you and your story.
Yes, and that obviously was a devastating experience, and added to that was the fact that I got PTSD, and my thought about that was that, well, no. I mean, I didn't go to war. I'm just a suburban housewife, and it was made very clear to me that anyone who witnesses a violent act potentially can have PTSD. And what's interesting about that is that it's not a disease that just you can talk your way out of. Your brain actually changes. I mean, there are chemical changes in your brain, and so that was really interesting to me to try and figure out, how to get rid of it. And what was the problem was is that I was trying to start a charter school at the same time, and I couldn't concentrate. I couldn't read. I couldn't write. I could barely, do anything. But yet, what was interesting is that I'd be able to go to a meeting and really function, high functioning and do a good job in the meeting. And then I'd walk out and I'd say to my friend who was always with me, who was recording all of this, and ask her, so what happened? And she'd say, oh dear. And then she'd tell me what happened, and then we, make a list of all the things we had to do, and we get them done. So it was really the challenge of taking on a Herculean task while not functioning terribly well, among other things.
So why did you decide to write a graphic memoir?
Well, I decided to write a graphic memoir for a couple of reasons. One, being involved with schools and just sort of people in general. I know that people don't read as much as they used to. And also I thought it was a story that I wanted to use the metaphor of the warthog, and I've always loved warthogs, because the metaphor of the warthog is we all have warts. Some are just more visible than others. And I wanted to write a book that was not like a crybaby book, but was just saying that if you have the right attitude and you will don't take no for an answer, you can be incredibly successful. And the point, which is made at the end of the book, is that I was looking for peace, meaning that I was very agitated and I was very upset. obviously. And I really thought that peace would be the antidote to this state of mind I was in. And turns out that it was not. It was purpose, and the purpose was the school and the engagement that the school brought me with an incredible cast of characters, both particularly the students who were just amazing and wonderful.
So, why don't you explain for us the warthog that is mentioned in the title?
Well, the warthog that's mentioned in the title is a character. I mean, it's not a warthog; it's a compilation of warthogs. And if you read the book, you'll see some of the warthogs look quite serious, and others of them look really funny. And so it's a graphic memoir also in the sense that it's set up. There are 5 sections, and each of the sections sort of tells a quick, like a one-page story about something that happened in my life. And then there would be 5 or 6 illustrations, and that then go on to sort of deepen the story of the 5 sections. And I'll give you an example. The last one is called "How Are You?" And there are 3 drawings of warthogs. The first one is a warthog who's wallowing in the mud with his tail up and looking quite satisfied, and the line is "I'm fine." The second one is a warthog that's dancing on its tail. And the quote there is, I'm dysfunctional? No, I'm adorable. And that's a line that a family member was in treatment for addiction. And they have something called Family Week, and my mother was there, and she had just seen a movie on dysfunction, and she said, "Well, our family's not dysfunctional. We're adorable." And I said to her, "Mother, look where we are. Hello." So that appealed to me. And then the last one, which is the ultimate true statement, is a warthog looking very majestic as a warthog can look. And it says "truly blessed." And bottom line is, I feel truly blessed. And I want to share that with everybody, that you can go through a lot and you can come out the other end. And it's a matter of reflection and taking no, and not taking no for an answer. One of the things, also the thing about writing the book too, is that it made me go back and reflect on a lot of things that had happened 20 years ago that I didn't really want to think about. One of the lines, for example, is grief is like constipation. And my initial line was very sort of smart alecky. And a friend of mine said, "Well, no, that's not really how you felt." And so I was able to go back and think about, well, how did I feel about the grief? How did that affect me physically? And the line then became, I feel all scrunched up inside. And that's exactly how grief did feel to me on a personal level. So it was nice to be able to share that. And it was good for me because I thought about things that I hadn't thought about in a long time. And I think that was very cathartic for me.
And it's so important because so many people have experienced some real tragedy and trauma within their lives, and especially nowadays. And we look at the society and how many people are going through different shootings and things like that, and they're expected to just put their life together afterwards, and it's tough. There needs to be some time that they can spend kind of recouping who they are.
Right. Well, that's very true. And what's interesting also is that the number of people. Well, first off, one of the illustrations is, and this was the last one that went in the book, is that true security is from the inside out, not the outside in. And what that comes from is a story of Sandy Hook Elementary School. They had a very sophisticated call system, if you will, that would alert if there was any problem. Well, guess what? The first two people who were murdered were the people who operated the call system. So the person who saved the day was a janitor who went running through the building saying, get inside your classrooms. And so that's sort of one way of looking at that. But there's also another, which is there's so much violence and that happens outside of schools. I mean, schools obviously are very much a target, but there are also other places as well. Look at the churches and look at the music festivals. And the idea here is that whether we like it or not, we have to train our young people how to survive if they find themselves in this kind of a situation, and or help others. I mean, I think it's very empowering for a young person to think that they can actually save somebody's life, and learning some of these techniques. And it's true, they can.
Well, that's really important. How, after the loss of your husband, how did you determine what real meaning was for you?
Well, first off, it was very clear that my life would be very different. We've been married for 27 years, and he had been the love of my life, and it was a very intense relationship, and he demanded, and I'm not saying this is like demand, but required, I guess, my full attention. And so when he died, there was a huge hole, both in terms of, a love and caring person in my life, but also just someone who I spent all my time with. So I really had to think about what I wanted to do and how I could create a new life for myself, which is basically what I had to do. And one of the things, if you ask people who knew me before Russell died versus after Russell died, is and I would agree with this as well. I mean, I became a very different person because in my prior life, I was very accommodating, and I felt really nice and happy and perky and peppy. And after Russell died, I felt very, I'm on a mission. And whatever it is I have to do to fulfill the mission, which was basically the school, I will do. So I became a much more not only focused, but my interests were much broader, and I, was really enjoying the work, and I thought I was having a really good time, and I found it to be something I certainly never would have considered because I don't have a background in education, but I really thought it was great and really, I've loved every minute of it. That's not to say there hasn't been great difficulty and great pain, but I found the right place where I needed to be during this period of time in my life.
Yeah, that's so important, and I think it's so inspiring for people to hear that, you can move on beyond, excuse me, these type of tragedies and things that happen within our life. And it seems like with you, traveling and adventure has always been part of that.
Well, yes. One of the things my mother said to me, which is in the book, is only boring people get bored. And so I've always been very concerned about getting bored. And bored in the sense that I would be unlovable because people would think I was boring. And so one of the ways I found to sort of keep myself engaged was to travel and do things. And one of the defining moments in my life was I just graduated from college, and I was living at home, and I had no prospects, meaning that this is 50 years ago, remember. I didn't have a husband. I didn't have a boyfriend, let alone a husband. And my hands were really small, and I was really terrible at typing, so I couldn't be a secretary. So I figured I have to think of something I'm going to do. I had a degree in urban planning, and for some reason it came into my mind that I was going to go plan Nairobi in Kenya. So I found an organization that was run by students for students, and they would find you jobs in different parts of the world. So I actually found a job in Perth, Western Australia, which I didn't even know where that was. But I said, okay, but I'm going to go to Nairobi first. And so then I thought to myself, well, now I've got to go raise the money for this. Where am I going to go find the money? So I thought, and I said, aha, well, I know, I'm going to go on a TV quiz show. So I went on a TV quiz show, and I won enough candy bars and Mary Kay cosmetics and cash and a sailboat that I had a pot of $10,000 for this adventure. And Pan Am was around then, so I bought an around the world ticket, and I got on a plane and I went to Nairobi, and I actually ended up meeting a former high school roommate there, and whose husband was working for the Singer Sewing Machine company, and I actually got a job as an animal husbandry officer. Now you have to laugh. You know, here I am, an urban planner, and I get a job as an animal husbandry officer. But you know, one of the great things that I believe is fake it till you make it. So okay, all righty, here we go. And I lived in a mud hut, and I had a general taking care of me. It's a general in the Mau Mau Army, and I was there for about 6 months, and I taught people how to dip their cattle by showing them Walt Disney movies in their mud huts. And then at the end of that experience, I then ultimately went on to Perth, Western Australia, and from there I hitchhiked across Australia and ended up in a freighter in Papua New Guinea, and on and on. So, you know, it's funny because I'm a great adventurer, but I'm terrified of crossing streets.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, with everything you've been through, I think everyone can understand that. You know, it's just, you know, there's just so much to consider. When your book is filled with so many great sayings. One I liked is "Attitude is everything," and you have a warthog that's chasing down a cheetah. You know.
Right, exactly. You know, and they always say, you know, you have to believe it to see it, so to speak. And that's been very much, I guess, my motto as well, is that if you believe you can make something happen, you can make it happen. And I'm a firm believer in talking to the universe. If you want something, you know, tell everybody, and maybe somehow it'll work out. So, by the way, you know, your lovely listening audience, I need a new school building. So if you have any ideas of how I can get a new school building in Philadelphia, I really would appreciate it.
Yeah, well, hey, it's always good to put that stuff out there and ask. You know, so I know you talk about, you know, that there's a secret to your own life. What is that secret?
Well, I would say the secret to my life is being willing to take risks. And what particularly the last 20 years, and somebody asked me the question, well, could you have written this book if you hadn't had the last 20 years? And the answer is no, I wouldn't have written the book because I wouldn't have had the amazing experiences that I have had. So I would say, you know, when something confronts me that really is frightening or upsetting, I sort of say to myself, well, okay, showtime. And I go and do whatever it is that I have to do to get through the experience. So I would say that for me, the mantra showtime has been very helpful. The other thing I do every morning is I get up and I say grit and gratitude, meaning that what is that I'm going to have to do today that's going to be sort of gritty and hard, and I'm not going to want to do it. And the other is gratitude, and that relates to what are the things that I'm grateful for. And believe me, I am grateful for something every day, because every day has something exciting or interesting or smile worthy. So I would say that the secret to my life is understanding that you need both grit and gratitude. And if you have those two sort of traits, or you figured out a way to have them be in your life, that you will be very successful.
Hmm. What are some of the obstacles that you've had to overcome?
Well, myself, one, I think, particularly because of the Parkinson's, I get tired easily, um, and I have a certain stubborn personality, and I want things done the way I want them done. Um, so I'd say to some degree I can be a barrier. Uh, but on a more philosophical level, I mean, just charter schools in general are things that are very controversial, and people will do a lot of things to make you not be successful. So you just have to sort of grit your teeth and sort of say, well, no, I'm gonna do this and make it work. um, but it's I think sometimes we are our own worst enemies, and I think and that's why I say attitude is everything. If you can make peace with yourself and decide, and focus and decide what it is that you want to accomplish, I think there are no barriers. You can accomplish anything you want, because for me, if I can't go through it, I can go over it or around it or under it. There's no such thing. Well, there are such things as some things, but there are very few things that you can't get done if you really are committed to doing it.
What advice would you like to give our listeners in regards to life and some of the things to kind of consider when they're met with really difficult times?
Well, I think one of the things I would say is that it's the metaphor of the warthog, which is everybody has warts. Some are just more visible than others. And I think that's a key statement that's really true. And I think also, nobody gets off free. Everybody has a problem. Everybody has issues. So rather than sort of moan and groan, I think my advice would be, accept it and say that, you've been given a challenge, and how am I going to get how am I going to get how am I going to live through this challenge, and how am I going to you know get through it and make it work. So that would be my basic piece of advice, is that somebody once said, we're here on this earth to solve problems, and I do believe that. So if you accept the fact you're going to have problems in your life, and the question is you want to have good problems, not bad problems, um, then you're going to be okay, because it's going to come back to your attitude. You're going to say, well, all right, I'm in the same boat as everybody else. So how am I going to, how am I going to row that boat? And I think that's my piece of advice. And by the way, invite lots of people in to help you row that boat. Whatever it is you want to do, you can't do it by yourself. So invite in people to help you row the boat.
That's so important because a lot of times people will, they'll go through difficulties and not really realize that other people are available to help them.
Yes, that's very true. And one of the things that I've found as I've been talking to people is everybody has a story. And, by talking to me, people sort of, they feel comfortable telling me their story, because they know that I'm going to understand, because I've had some of the same experiences. So I think that that's really important to share, because what you'll find is people will be much more understanding and compassionate than you might think.
So back to wild wisdom, what was the inspiration of having the warthog as kind of like the main character throughout that?
Well, number one, I love warthogs, and I've always loved warthogs. And as I had said, as an animal, it's a wonderful metaphor um, for a story that I was trying to tell. Um, and also, I felt that um, the warthog needed a champion. I mean, people aren't terribly excited about warthogs, and because they're not glamorous, they're not chic or cute. I mean, they're just not. They're quite prickly. So I was very happy to be the champion of the underdog. That appealed to me because I guess I felt sort of like an underdog myself. So I thought, well, all right, the warthog and I together are going to tell a story and keep each other company.
Well, it's interesting. I think while most people can relate to a warthog, you kind of do spell it out where, they've got these attributes that aren't like warm and cuddly, So.
Mm-hmm. Right. A warthog is not a kitty cat.
No, not a dog. Not at all. Well, where can our listeners connect with you and be part of your community?
Well, two places. One, we have a website, warthogproductions.com, and we that actually goes into a lot more detail about things that I couldn't get in the book. And there's an opportunity there to connect on a personal level if you'd love to. One of the things we really want to do is to make this interactive and have people share their own wild wisdom because everybody has some. And of course, you could buy the book. And you can buy that on Amazon. And I really envision this becoming a community and becoming an opportunity for people to share with each other their wild wisdom because everybody, as I said, has some.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Oh, listen, it's been my pleasure. I've really enjoyed it, and I hope your listeners enjoyed it.
Thank you, Laurada. It's been such an honor to spend this time with you and, of course, to talk about your new book, Wild Wisdom. Wild Wisdom's available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie retailers. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Sunday, Monday, Thursday, and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.